Disassembly drones have several different weapons, that of which they can swap out with their hands. The weapons could either be stabbing and slashing weapons, to guns and explosive launchers. They're also able to fly and use a tail to fight, which has a substance that slowly eats away at material if left unchecked. The disassembly drones are also quite physically strong and fast, and seen in two different types of clips where two different disassembly drones showed off what they could do, with one being N, which was able to launch another character, Uzi, several miles into the air with little to no difficulty. And for their speed, it is around that of gun bullets, as in the other scene, the drone V was able to catch a bullet with extreme precision. Now,
my share, but it's okay, 'cause I'm gonna repair it. They say there are no retakes, but I just don't agree. No, this show is of my own making. Take it back to the start.
for their durability, they are not that great in that department, as they are constantly getting cut up and destroyed by attacks that are weaker than their own attacks or their own output. But what makes them able to survive all of that and still keep on going, and even some small explosions, is that as long as their core remains intact, then they're pretty much good and can regenerate. Moving on to the next category, there are the solver drones. These characters are pretty much normal worker drones, but with telekinetic abilities, which are a result of having the solver ability. This allows them to throw objects at deadly speeds, directly manipulate and harm other drones, catch fast-moving objects, and be able to teleport around, along with other abilities like controlling technology and other drones. Now, for the stronger users of this ability, like the protagonist Uzi, especially near the end, and the antagonist Sin, they're so strong that they can use the absolute solver to pretty much create null black holes that can destroy objects and even take out chunks from planets. Sin, being probably the more impressive display of this ability, is also able to use tentacles to fight along with being able to disguise themselves. The Absolute Solver can do several other things, but that's pretty much the more substantial of things that it can do. One main issue with the Solver drones is that they're still quite easy to break like the other drones, as they are constantly ripped apart or cut throughout the series with attacks that are far weaker than what they can do, which makes all of the drones shown, even those of other types, a sort of glass cannon, if you will.
Change of hearts. I know we can make it better than it ever was. I know we can make it better.
Moving on to the disassembly drones, they are a bit stronger than the hellborn and have more weapons to use. So one-on-one they do win, as even if they are shot, the disassembly drones would survive and keep fighting so long as the core is intact. Now, comparing the Sinners to the disassembly drones, the outcome is much closer, as Sinners are faster, stronger, and more durable than the Hellborn, and they require special angelic type weaponry or materials to be put down for good. This makes it so the drones would not only have to fight the Sinners, but also figure out how the angelic materials work and how to end the Sinners with it. Now, if the drones do get a hold of angelic weaponry, then they would have a real good chance at winning compared to the Sinners, because the drones are shown to have better physical strength by a little, and more resistance to near fatal damage, and they both have about equal speed, give or take.
I know we can make it better than it ever was. I know we can make it better.
Now, bringing in the overlords, the disassembly drones will start to have issues. This is simply for the reason that the overlords have the better means of defense, along with tougher durability than the Sinners, and maybe a little faster too. Their magic abilities would also allow them to get the upper hand against a disassembly drone, and again, this is counting that disassembly drones have angelic weaponry, or at least access to it. So now, would the solver drones, like Doll, do any better? The solver abilities that the drones, like Doll, has would allow them to use different tactics against the overlords, and could possibly take on lesser overlords, as the solver abilities allow them to directly grab or interact with other characters. but stronger overlords, which have displayed similar abilities to the solver drones, would be difficult to win against, since the drones with solver abilities, not counting Uzi or Sin, are slower, less durable, and would have trouble defending themselves as well as trying to attack an overlord.
I know there's things to change,
which could create minions and create other manners of attacking. The only winning condition for a drone, like Doll in this example, is to sneakily use the solver ability to grab an angelic metal thing and shoot it at an overlord to get a sneaky little hit. Now, moving on to Sin and Uzi, both have been shown to keep up against the Disassembly drones in the final fight scene, because they can create appendages that either give them flight and faster mobility, or appendages that allow them to expand their ability to fight head-to-head. Now, just these increased physical attributes would put them on a similar level to stronger overlords, since they can do several more things, even without having to use the telekinetic powers of the absolute solver. But if you do include these absolute solver abilities, then either of these stronger characters from murder drones could beat an overlord from HAZBIN. This also extends to the Goetia, as they're pretty much just alluded to being like an overlord, but with a bit more magical power and just power overall. And since the character Sin destroyed a planet and Uzi beat Sin later in Aether Core, they should be around about the same strength, which would make them higher than the Goetia. Now we go to the Sins. These would fare much better, but ultimately the absolute solver would still more than likely win, as the Sins are not shown to be capable of the same kind of destruction as the absolute solver. They may be a bit more durable and possibly faster, but just the sheer amount of destruction and other stuff from the absolute solver would more than likely overwhelm them, since we haven't really seen them take on anything very tough in the HAZBIN Hotel or Hell of a Boss show. So now, could the Seraphim, especially this fella, take on any of the absolute solvers? Well, let's see. For durability, the Seraphim would be higher than the absolute solvers, for the same reasons mentioned before. For speed, the Seraphim would be faster, but not by a giant margin. And as for power, this is where it becomes a bit more debatable. This is simply because the Seraphim and the fallen angel Lucifer haven't really shown the full extent of their power. So if you take the lower estimates for the Seraphim, then the absolute solvers could possibly win. But if you take some of the bigger estimates going into the low cosmic levels for the Seraphim, like Lucifer, then they would have a pretty good edge in all departments of stats and would more than likely win.
the path that I could choose is lose, and I must find a new one. Our fates are not yet written. I will take the warning, choose a way that's less destructive. Yeah, I know it look bad, but we've only seen one path. Can't you see we are free to choose our